Every tragedy has a beginning. Most of them go unnoticed. Robert Stone did not become the man people knew overnight. On the night his daughters were born, he stood in a hospital corridor, waiting for a door to open. 2 girls came into the world. His wife did not survive. By morning, he was no longer just a husband. He was a father and a widower. He was told that one of the twins had died. He did not argue. He did not break. He accepted it as fact. He buried his wife and carried his daughter home. From that day on, his life rested on 2 things: work and the child who remained. As his factory grew, so did his daughter. He watched her first steps, her first day of school, the first time she stood beside him at the factory gates. Evelyn Stone grew up within that system from early childhood. The best schools, strict discipline, a clear understanding that a family name is a responsibility. She was taught not to ask, but to measure up. Caitlin Morris lived a modest life with her husband Thomas, an Army officer. They were not wealthy, but their home was steady and built on quiet work. For years, the only thing breaking that stability were pregnancies that ended in loss. Before that night, Caitlin had already buried 3 children. On the same night Robert Stone's daughters were born, Caitlin gave birth as well. Her child did not survive. Her sister Anna understood that another loss might destroy her, so she made a decision that would change 2 families. By morning, Caitlin was holding a living baby girl. A week later, Thomas left for the war. He never came back. After Thomas Morris was killed, life became harsher. Money was scarce, and Caitlin took whatever work she could to keep them afloat. Margaret learned early that the world does not offer second chances. She helped her mother, watched her grow tired, but never give up. In that house, losses were not spoken of aloud. They were simply remembered, and life went on. Margaret was a quiet, compliant girl. She loved her mother deeply and never argued with the weight life placed on them. When money ran thin, she worked. When work was hard, she stayed. She took shifts others refused and did not complain. By the time she was grown, she stood on the floor of a large industrial factory, one of many workers whose names no one remembered. Henry Wells had not been in America for nearly 10 years. He entered Stone's factory and walked between the production lines. The noise made conversation useless. The air was thick with oil and dust. Men and women worked without pause, and in the middle of that movement, he saw her. Margaret. She stood at a machine, adjusting the mechanism. Sleeves rolled up, movements precise. When the line stalled, she found the fault herself and restarted the system. The machine came back to life. Henry slowed his pace. He did not know her name. He did not know how she was connected to the owner. He only knew that he could not look away. It was not beauty that held him. It was strength. Henry fell in love irrevocably. If anyone doubts love at first sight, he would have been their proof. From that day on, the factory was no longer just an industrial enterprise to him. It was a single point within the noise. Margaret. He began finding reasons to appear there more often than business required, inspecting production lines. The excuses were flawless. The intention was not. One glance was enough for him. It was not a passing infatuation. It was a pull that would not allow him to remain distant. And one day, circumstance gave him the opportunity to approach. The shift had ended. She stood by the gate with her bicycle. The chain had slipped again. This time, he did not stay in the car. He stepped out. He began meeting her outside the factory. Then came arranged dinners, walks that lasted longer than planned. It was not only her strength that held him. It was her restraint. Margaret carried herself with quiet dignity. She did not try to impress him. She did not adjust herself or make herself smaller in his presence. She spoke directly, She listened carefully. There was no calculation in her, no desire for his name or position, only honesty. And it was that honesty that affected him more than admiration ever could. What began as interest gradually became attachment, and attachment became something neither of them tried to resist anymore. While Henry and Margaret were walking through the city, a very different conversation was taking place behind closed doors. The Stones and the Welleses had known each other for many years. Respect, shared interests, influence. Over time, friendship became practical. A marriage between their children was discussed not as a romantic idea, but as a reasonable decision. Stability, alliance, the right future. Robert Stone spoke calmly with his daughter. He explained how such a union would strengthen the family's position. Henry's father did the same. He reminded his son that some choices carry more weight than personal preference. Both families were certain they were offering their children the best possible path. They did not know that this path had already begun to form without their approval. The reception at the Stone residence was held in a grand hall with high ceilings. The union between the families had been discussed for a long time. This evening was meant to become the first step toward an engagement. Henry had invited Margaret himself. He did not explain much. He simply asked her to accompany him. The guests were certain they would see Henry and Evelyn standing side by side, the future couple. But Henry did not enter the house alone. Margaret walked beside him. He introduced her calmly, and that calmness sounded louder than any scandal. His parents fell silent first, then the guests. Evelyn stood motionless, as if she had not yet fully understood what was happening. In a hall that moments before had been filled with voices and laughter, silence settled. The evening that was meant to seal an agreement suddenly slipped out of control, and everyone felt it. But more than anyone else, Robert Stone changed. When he looked at Margaret, something tightened sharply in his chest. It was not anger. It was recognition. Margaret lifted her eyes and saw Evelyn. The face, the line of the jaw, the eyes, too similar. Henry looked at them both and for a second lost his footing. In the grand hall, the air turned cold. 2 days after the reception, Robert Stone came to see me at the Silent Detective Bureau. I am the detective who runs it. He looked different. Not like a man protecting his reputation, like a man afraid of the truth. I went back to the hospital archives. I reviewed the records, and I found what was never meant to remain in the official papers. The child had lived. That night, Nurse Anna Morris had switched the babies. Before her death, she left a letter for her sister, a confession. Even her own sister had not known the truth. She believed she had been raising her own daughter. Margaret's mother never suspected she was bringing up another woman's child. When the letter reached her, she did not hide it. She showed it, and she told the truth. That was how the families learned who they had truly been to each other all those years. And that was how the Stones found their daughter again. Henry continued seeing Margaret and no longer felt the need to hide. After the reception and the first conversations about the past, he felt a strange sense of relief, as if the arrangements the families had discussed for years could simply be undone by a single decision. It seemed to him that he had the right to choose, and that kinship was a matter of blood. That day he came to the Stone house with a ring, firmly intending to ask for Margaret's hand. He did not know that Evelyn would overhear the conversation. She was standing on the upper gallery when she realized that they were not speaking about her, that the alliance built over years was collapsing in a single moment, and that the man introduced to her as a future husband had come to ask for another woman. Her name was not spoken once. She stepped back. She lost her balance, and she fell down the stairs. The fall lasted only seconds. but it was enough. She tumbled down the steps and died before anyone could reach her. Robert Stone rushed toward the noise and saw his daughter at the foot of the staircase. He dropped beside her, but the shock was stronger than he was. His heart failed. In one day, the Stone house lost a daughter and a father. At the bottom of the stairs stood Henry, the ring still in his hand. Beside him stood Margaret, understanding that what had felt like a personal choice had become a catastrophe for everyone. And in a house where the future had been discussed just hours earlier, only two remained.
Every story I take on leaves a mark. Not all wounds are visible at once. Some follow you longer than you expect. What moment in your life changed you forever?